go ahead, take a deep breath, pull it in, hold, and let it out. You're here today to develop and strengthen your mindset because you know that weekly training sessions in mindfulness is the missing link the world is searching for when it comes to business success. So set aside the external logistical side of business growth and come with me now to a world of focus, purpose, calm, confidence, and personal power using NLP and CBT tools and techniques. I am your host, Leah Marie, and you're listening to Flip the Switch. Hey, you guys are not going to want to miss this awesome episode of Flip the Switch, episode number 4. Thank you for joining me. And we are going to be meeting up with our featured guest, the one and only Dana Derricks. Now, you might know him as the author of Dream 100 or maybe the copywriting professor. Either way, you're not going to want to miss this. And you can also find it on the YouTube channel for Master of Me as well. So here are some things that you guys are going to learn inside of the conversation that I have with Dana today. What you're going to learn is how Dana saw his path versus how others saw theirs or living out theirs as far back as the college days, and how this really started to shape who he is. Another thing is we're going to look at the importance of channeling your entrepreneur itch, as well as why you might not want to be a millionaire. Now, of course, we're going to go into how he has defined a comfortable, successful life and how to recognize your accomplishments of the past. Dana's also going to give us 2 tips to growth that you are absolutely going to love. You're not going to want to miss those. And a surprising story of Dana's first time being asked for an autograph. Now, this is kind of fun, is Dana will also make a prediction of the future, and he also gets very raw and real and vulnerable in his stories. So you're definitely going to want to stay to the end for number 1, the statement that I make that Dana it calls out as a mic drop, and 2, what he's doing now. I can't wait to jump in on this episode with you guys. Thanks so much for joining me. Welcome to Flip the Switch, you guys. I am so excited about today's guest. And you guys are in for a real treat. You guys are going to be so excited about this. So I'm sure you know, because I've been kind of really building up to this moment. But our first guest is Dana Derricks. And the reason why I wanted to have him as my first guest and really highlight him on Flip the Switch is because when it comes to entrepreneurship, he goes against the grain. So if any of you guys have read any of his books, they're always like this controversial thing happening, right? And it's kind of like that fish that swims upstream when everyone else is going the other direction. But I love this because he's like this mix of the goat farmer who's super humble, but then he's got like this multi-million-dollar backing business that he's like created, and there's so much that we can learn from him. So I'm so excited about this. So I guess the main reason is because on Flip the Switch, I really wanted to bring you guys the absolute best for entrepreneurship. And when it comes to Dana Derricks, he's the best. So I'm so excited to have him on here. And I'm guessing that right now you're about to be like, okay, she's gonna bring him on the camera, but I'm not. You have to wait 1 second because I actually wanna give him like a proper introduction and then he'll jump on. So I'm actually gonna use some notes for this because this guy's got a stack of credentials and I didn't even cover all of them, but we're gonna get started here. So I thought, when we bring him on, when it comes to Dana, we could talk about just how he's been featured and worked with Forbes. He's been featured on these or worked with Forbes, Amazon.inc or Amazon.com Inc. I'm a little bit nervous because I'm so excited to have him. ClickFunnels and Lady Boss and a bunch of others. But we're not going to talk about all of those success parts necessarily. And we're not even going to talk about really the big successful side of how this all works. So for example, the fact that he's a copywriter of choice who wrote the sales funnel page for ClickFunnels, that small little company that grew and had 9 figures in under 3 years. Okay. So yeah, he's the copywriter for that. He's known as the copywriting professor. He has wrote several books, like the Dream 100 book, Truth About Business, High Ticket Book Secrets, Conversion Secrets Mastery. And that's just to name a few. So there are so many things. So with all of this history, we could probably get into just so much deep content on how to do all of that stuff, but that's not what we're going to talk about today. So we might talk about, though, something about the challenge or the difficulty that it is to build up from coming from starting your journey in a little business out of your garage and turning it into a multi-million-dollar empire. So what we're going to do, though, is I'm going to let Dana lead out on this conversation. So we're going to have a lot of fun, and I'm going to follow his lead a little bit on this, and then we're going to have a lot of fun. So when it comes to all of this, I'm going to just put you out of your misery. I'm going to kill the suspense here, and I'm going to welcome the one and only Dana Derricks. Bum, bum, bum.
Hey! That's amazing. Thank you so much. I feel like I need you to be my hype gal. That was awesome.
You're welcome. Okay, so it's really funny. So when I originally talked to Dana about coming on the show, one of the things that I asked him was, I said, what do you wish that somebody would ask you on an interview that you never get asked, right? Because a lot of times people like have it all laid out and they always want to hear the exact same stories. And, I think it gets kind of boring for them. So I wanted to know from Dana, I said, what is it that you want to talk about on a podcast? What would be really cool for you to talk about? And it was cool because what he said to me was, he said, I want to talk about the not so pretty side of being an entrepreneur. And I was like, this is perfect, because that's really what we talk about in Flip the Switch. We talk about the struggles and then how to make the mindset shifts in order to have the success. And I think that you've got some good stories for that. So why don't you start off with just taking the lead and letting us know, where do you want to start? What story do you want to start off with that kind of depicts that journey?
Awesome. So first of all, everybody ready to flip the switch? Like, this is awesome. I love everything about this podcast. So thank you for having me. And I'll just dive right in. So First of all, I think what people fail to mention is that entrepreneurship is not this like glamorous rose covered thing. And to be totally transparent, much like, I guess, Instagram or whatever else, like what you see is just the highlight reel, right? So what's actually happening behind the scenes is not that pretty, not enjoyable, not fun. And like a specific example is, so even going way back, starting in the beginning, like walking on college campus, like just having nothing in common with the other kids in terms of like what their mindset is for their career. Like I felt like a penguin walking around with walruses, right?
Oh.
Like they don't look like me. They don't act like me. They want to eat me, right? Like, so in other words, like they're all getting ready to become accountants or teachers or nurses. And there's nothing wrong with that way, but that was not my path. So I just remember like walking past kids and just seeing them go through the motions of trying to get an A in the class. And I'm just like, that's really it for you? Like that's all you're going to do today? And there's nothing wrong with it. But it just was like from the beginning, you're almost like in your own world, right?
Yeah, I feel like entrepreneurs are it's like it's in their blood, right? And I've talked to some other entrepreneurs about this, how a lot of times it's just like this calling, right? You just feel like you have to do something, and it's like an itch you can't scratch, right? And if you don't start doing something inside of that area, you're going to go insane. And you need to like do something inside of that area. And as soon as you start doing it, and this is the funny thing is a lot of times, like, we don't know what we're doing. We just know we have to do something, right? When we first start out. And so we just start doing anything to just try and figure out, okay, which way am I going? I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that. I'm going to try whatever. And then what happens is we get to this place where everything's hard and we're like, dang, this is not easy. And I don't know what I'm doing. And I feel lost. And this is way harder than I thought. And it doesn't make sense when I look at the examples that I see, like you said, on the internet, right? On social media and everything, of like the fancy car and that, oh, it only took me like 3 months or whatever, right? And not enough people share the backstory of how that happened, right? And a lot of people talk about this whole like overnight success. Well, yeah, it's an overnight success because of 15 or 10 or 8 or 5 or whatever years of killing their back, right, put an effort in. And so it was that breakthrough moment that everyone sees. So yeah, I totally agree. And I feel like a lot of times entrepreneurs, they get to that point where they have that they hit that wall and they have two choices. Either they give up, and let's say they do try and say, oh, I'm just going to do the norm thing. They go into that yearning never leaves, right? And so either they have to keep fighting it or they have to do something about it.
Totally. And I think it also can be channeled. So I look back on my own story, and spending 10 years, at a computer for 14 hours a day, trying, is obviously not something that I would like trade. But I think that, for entrepreneurs, especially, that itch that you can't scratch can and should be channeled in multiple ways. So like having the pressure of like, oh, you got to figure this out, by this time next week, or else you can't pay the bills. Like that is just not healthy, and adding in the dynamics and stress of relationships on top of that, where people literally cannot understand you. And that's a whole nother thing. Like even my parents, like growing up, being in sports, they always supported me. They were always in the bleachers, which I'm so grateful for. And then becoming an entrepreneur, they didn't know how to support me. So that was a weird, kind of dynamic to have to work around. So for those of you listening or watching this, like we get it. Okay. And flipping the switch is not going to be that bad. Trust me, learn from our experience. And you're going to find your way. And whether that's what you think it is or not, it's going to be what it is meant to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So do you have a specific memory of like when you were either burnt out or you were working really, really hard and maybe business was going really, really well, and then all of a sudden like you plateaued and you were like, okay, I need to somehow look at this differently in order to get to the next level? I'm sure you have more than one.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so one that comes to mind right away is I call this being miserably rich. So everybody, like, I have a good friend named Alex Hormozy who is the CEO of one of the fastest growing companies in America, and he really changed my mind around like problems. Like, so everyone thinks that, you make a bunch of money and then all your problems go away. And what he said is like, problems don't go away. They just change, right? Yeah, they get exactly. So I thought, oh, I'm going to make all this money and then all my problems go away. Cause I didn't grow up. We weren't dead poor, but we were not wealthy. And I did not have a ton. And so I thought, man, if I could just make like $100,000, like I'll be good. Right. And all my problems will go away. So I did. And then I realized, I had a whole new list of problems. So anyway, what that looked like for me was I was working as a freelance copywriter,
Mm-hmm.
and I was making great money, but I was so bogged down with tons of projects that I pretty much couldn't take a break, couldn't take a day off, didn't want to go to a movie with my friends because it was too expensive with the opportunity cost of walking away from the time that I could be working. And I really kind of drove myself into a corner and was not happy. So with that being said, for those of you that are kind of resonating with that, there is a point where you have to be very much content with what you have and just keep moving. I'm not saying be complacent, but don't work so hard. Don't like I used to think that I wanted to be a billionaire. And then I realized like what that actually looks like. And I got close to people that were like close to billionaires. And I realized like, that doesn't look fun. Right. Like, so I really changed my mindset after that, after realizing like, Dana, like you can afford to go to a movie, like, so.
Yeah. So it's kind of that realization of, I have a couple of options. I can create success and then I can turn it into a monster that cannot be satisfied. And I then am like leashed or tied down to this thing that I've created, right? And that's kind of one idea of success, because you're constantly having to feel like I need to fulfill this, I need more. And that's an insatiable appetite. Like it will never be filled. Or it sounds like you could have another level of success where it's like, success to me is being able to have enough that I can not only take care of my family, but I can go and give, I can go and spend time with my friends. I can go and do some of the things and not worry that it's going to break the bank.
Exactly. Yep. And it's about channeling it too. Like I said before, I think when I guess the cliche, it's lonely at the top, like that's true. It is true. And with that, like I try not, it's important to have blinders on, and you don't compare yourself to others like around you, especially your peers, because they're different than you, and that's okay. But like, why, like if I make $1 million a year, let's say, why do I need 10 million? Like, do I really like to live a comfortable, good, honest life? Do I need $10 million? Like, and this is like a conversation that, you know, I have a lot. Or do I need $100 million? Like, just because my friends are making that, do I have to do that? And the answer, honestly, it's no. Like realistically, no. Like, okay, do I want to be on stage and get an award for making $50 million? Of course, don't know. However, like, is it worth all that I will have to give up to get that? I don't think so. And I'm not saying that that's not a good thing to shoot for, but for me personally, for some of you listening, like, you don't have to be this big time, you know, I don't know, massive entity to define success. Like, success is defined by what you want.
Yeah. I love that you said that it's what you want. And I think that a lot of times we go after success for what we think we want, or what other people want for us, rather than what we truly want, rather than asking ourselves those hard questions. And I love it because you said, you know, this is a conversation I have. I'm guessing you have that more so with yourself than with anybody else, with yourself and probably with your wife, Becca, right? But it's one of those things that it's that internal reviewing that successful people do that help keep them grounded, right? As they scale and as they grow their business.
Yeah, totally. And it's easy to fall into the trap of like more. So, and I've definitely fallen into that as well. But if you can if you can step back and then look at yourself a few years ago and how you would feel about where you are now, it's so much better than like looking into the future and thinking, oh, I'm not there, you know? So I think that everyone is in a place that they need to stop and reflect a lot more than they do, and give themselves a little bit more credit than they do. Even those that seem to have it all are not feeling that way on the inside. So example, like someone going up to the stage and they're getting an award for making $50 million. They see the picture and right, like just for visual, there's 4 like discs on the big award. And for every 25 million, you get 1 disc filled in. So they've got 2 out of 4 filled in, right? $50 million. That is amazing. Like, holy crap. Good for you. However, they look at that picture and this is what they think. Oh, there's 2 spots missing on that award. And they look at it almost like a failure, right? And here we are like admiring, like, wow, they're going to go home and toast some champagne and have, you know, no, they're probably working on the flight home because they're so mad that they didn't get the other 2 plaques filled in. So with that, I think it's important, as you said, to think about what it is that you've done, and without taking your foot off the gas, of course, being okay, right?
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I teach inside of Flip the Switch that kind of is an example of this, and you gave a great example of that when you just mentioned that, is that there's a growth cycle that we need to follow. And if we don't follow the growth cycle, like it's a law. Okay, so it's kind of like the law of gravity. If you don't follow, like, I mean, you don't have a choice. Like, this is the way it works, right? And there's growth laws. And if we don't follow those growth laws, the journey is so much more difficult. And it's kind of like totally recognizing as well, like you as a farmer, you would recognize that if you plant something in the spring, you have to do certain things in order for that fruit to produce in the fall. And you can't plant it and expect to have fruit the next day. And a lot of entrepreneurs, that's kind of what we are expecting. And our expectations are blown way out of proportion, right? And so we find that it's a harder journey. And so to bring those things into perspective, we talk about how, when it's time to grow, when it's time to have that change, when it's time to flip that switch, there's going to be some sort of some sort of spark of change. And it's either going to be external or it's going to be internal. Right? And for you talked about a few that was internal, right? Where you're like, dude, I can't even go and hang out with my friends because I'm making so much money that this movie doesn't cost me $12. This movie costs me like $750 because of what I could have made during that 2 hours, right? And so what happens though is that we have an external or an internal spark of change. And then from there, we need to go into discovery mode. We need to educate ourselves. We need to go into that space of learning and really, and then planning out like, okay, this is like, what is success really to me? What does that mean? Right? And then if that's what success means, if I want to change the definition of success, then how am I going to put actions in place? How am I going to plan for that success? Now, most people, what we do is we go, well, I want to have the success, so I'm going to start doing the thing. And we skip the planning mode and we skip the experimenting mode and we go straight to try and do the thing. And then we run into a wall, we run into failure and we get frustrated and we get stuck, right? But if you follow the laws, you'll have the success, right? And so and I talked about this in one of my other podcast episodes, but I'll mention it for you here, Dana, is that one of the things too is that I talk to them about, which I think you'll find interesting, and maybe you already know this, I don't know, but the next step would be the experimenting phase, right? And I'm sure like maybe you can give us an example of in business where you've done that. You've gone out, you've been like, okay, this is what my audience needs. Like I work with entrepreneurs. This is what they're looking for. This is what they need, right? Because you've got programs, you've got services that you give. And so you say, this is what the need is. Now I'm going to start planning it all out. And then we're going to experiment it. We're going to do a beta phase. We're going to see where things are at with that, right? And then after you get the results back from that and you've done the experimenting, then you go into the implementing and the doing phase, right? And with the implementing doing phase, that's when you start seeing the consistent results. And that's when you're like, okay, this is going to work. And it works the same way with creating habits, right? People don't give them that space and that time to fail and be okay with it because they're just experimenting. And then, we go into being like prospering, right? But that's the cool thing is like you said, is that when we're prospering, we need to start over again, right? So it's actually, we all want to be on the prospering side, but as soon as we get to the part where we're really implementing and everything's running smoothly, we start to look for another area of our life where we can start the growth cycle again so that we have that balance, right? So do you have any examples of where like that cycle where you can say, yeah, I've totally seen that cycle happening?
Oh, definitely. So I'll say this, historically, I've not been very good at the planning part and I get antsy and just go and like do a bunch of stuff, but getting better. I got two quick things. So first, what you said about planting seeds and then, having to do things in order to get a good crop is just perfect. And I'm going to get tactical for a second here. So what that looked like for me is like, look, if you're going to plant a crappy seed, right, or do a crappy job of planting the seed, don't expect a good harvest. Like you're not going to yield something really great. So for me, that looked like back in the day, I would launch a lead magnet, right, like a free PDF or something, because that was the thing. Or I would launch a webinar, right, a free webinar, because that was the thing. And I launched a crappy one. Like it was a crappy lead magnet. It was a crappy one. Why? Because it was free. Like I'm like, what do you expect? It's free. And guess what happened? It yielded crappy results. Like people were like, that sucked. And guess what? They didn't want anything else from me. And guess what? I deserve that because I reaped what I sowed. I planted a crappy seed and I got a crappy yield. So with that, no matter what you do, even how small it is or the ceiling is low, just do it so well that everything else kind of takes care of itself, right? So now fast forward tactically again, I have some of the best free resources there are. And Leah's living this right now. She's creating an amazing free resource right now, right? She's planting a very good seed. So with that, it doesn't matter if you are a welder. It doesn't matter if you are a stay-at-home mom, a whatever you are, a nurse. Like, do it the best you can possibly do. And all these other things will, for the most part, take care of themselves over time. And then the other thing you said about like cycles and doing and planning and all that, this is how I look at it. So my favorite analogy with trying and failing is baseball. So do you watch baseball, Leah?
I did when my little brothers played, but I don't really watch TV.
Oh, good for you. That's good.
So,
that's good.
I'd rather go to the stadium. I would do that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So at least you know how it works. That's the important thing. So if you look at the best baseball players in the world, when they go up to bat, their batting average is in around the 300. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what that means is that for every 10 times they go to the plate, only 3 of the 10 do they get a hit, okay, or a base hit, get on base. The other 7 out of 10, they are striking out. They are getting hit by the pitch. They are, walking or whatever, right? Not good outcomes. Right. So if they can keep going to the plate after not hitting a home run, not hitting even a base hit 7 out of 10 times, and they're considered the best in the world, by the way, why is it that when we launch something or we try something and it doesn't work, we give up, right? So that keeps me going. And there's a kind of a fine line between, and I think it comes back to planning, which you outlined, which you're obviously really good at. Looking at the notes to this episode, it was amazing. Holy crap. So in other words, there's 2 extremes. There's like paralyzing yourself from analysis, right? And you don't launch it because it's not perfect, right? And it never launches, which I say, if you, for the parents out there, or even you, if you're not a parent, you wouldn't be here if your parents waited for the perfect moment to have you. Just saying. Okay. So there's no perfect moment. And then the other side is like just heaving Hail Marys, seeing what sticks on the wall. Like both are not good. So it's in the middle, right? So with that, those are just analogies, I suppose, that keep me grounded and keep me in line and keep going. But everybody will find their place.
Yeah, I love that. So can you think of maybe like a situation where changing your mindset changed the complete trajectory of your business? So maybe the time when you brought Taylor in as a business partner or something like that, or maybe another time. But like, I love this analogy. I don't know if you know very much about trains and stuff like that, but when they're on a track and then they have these switch points and you move like a piece of iron. It's like, I don't know, 6 inches, 12 inches, whatever it might be. It's a little flip of this switch, clicks over, and that train is like hundreds of miles in a completely different direction, right? And so even though it started in the same place, one tiny flip can switch your direction 100% so that it's like a 180-degree turn, right? And I feel like that is something that we as entrepreneurs don't tap into enough. Instead, so many times we're looking at these 2, because when you're first standing there, when the tracks split, they are only like a foot apart from each other, right? And so we're like, oh, I could do this, or I could do this, or sometimes they only see the one track and they don't even see the other track, right? And it isn't until they shift their mindset or turn around, because one side it's one track, and if you turn around the other way, all of a sudden you see 2 tracks, right? And so it isn't until they make that shift for themselves that can take, like with certain tools, with CBT and NLP, like it can happen like that fast, right? Where all of a sudden, have you ever had that where it's like this light bulb moment and all of a sudden it goes from seeing no possibilities to holy freak, there's all of these possibilities. And I think that's a little bit of what it's like when you bring in a new affiliate too, right? When you do affiliate marketing, because it's like the one-to-one, like I'm trying to like source these people one. And when I read Dream 100 for the first time, I was like, holy freak, right? This is a flip the switch right here. This is a mindset shift right here on how to serve more people and how to go from, I only have 24 hours in the day, to go to like, I have, 100 hours in the day. I have 1,500 hours in the day, because you're not the only person working on that business, right? And so you no longer only have 24 hours, because you have how many other people working at the exact same time as you on that business, right? And so tell me a little bit about that. And I wish I forgot to bring it down here. I have your book, and I wanted to show you guys, for those that can see the video of this, because I'm going to be putting this on the YouTube channel. For those that are on the audio, sorry, you won't be able to see it. Maybe I'll just put a picture maybe on YouTube or something, but Dana's book, like literally, I'm at least in my 4th time reading it. And if you open it, it's like highlighters and marked all up. Like, I don't just read the book. Like, I am like devouring the book. Okay. I'm studying it. So, okay, Dana, your turn. Go. Tell me something awesome.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. That's very proud. And quick side note, this is a great example for everybody here. So when I wrote that book, I had no idea anyone would ever read it, had no expectations of anyone actually liking it. All I thought was scared to death to launch it. So to hear those words, the weirdest thing for me was when I was at an event and someone came up to me when I was walking to my hotel room, and they stopped me and they put their backpack on the ground in front of us. And I'm like, oh my gosh, are you robbing me? What's going on? And they pulled out a copy of my book and a pen, and they're like, Dana, will you sign this? I was like, huh? Me? I'm just a goat farmer. Like, what do you want my signature for? So anyway, for those of you that are scared to launch your thing, launch your thing. So back to the point here. The one thing that was the switch flipper for me, I'm going to coin that, hashtag switch flipper, was getting permission. Okay. So right now, for those listening or watching, Leah and I give you permission to do the thing that you're not doing. Okay. Because you're waiting for permission, probably subconsciously. For me, this is what that looked like. And hopefully it's not as expensive for you. But basically, I'm walking around campus as this entrepreneur that doesn't fit in, blah, blah, blah. And then fast forward a few years, making good money, don't dare tell anyone or talk about it because I have nothing in common with my peers, right? If I, for example, if I stood up in a restaurant right now down the road and I said, hey, everybody, I'm a digital marketer and I do this and I make this much money, blah, 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 I would probably have knives thrown at me, right? Like, it wouldn't be like an ovation, like, right? Like, oh, I'm the principal at the elementary downtown. They'd be like, yeah, like, buy that guy a drink. Not me, right? So with that, I invested in a mastermind with a guy named Russell Brunson, and I sent a $25,000 wire transfer one way, and I had about $3 left to my name. Didn't know why, just felt like I needed to do it. A few weeks go by, a few months actually, I'm like, oh my God, I just got scammed bad. Why did I do that? And it wasn't until I showed up to the live event and went on stage and told my story. And at the end, the room, like people just lined up to just greet me and hug me and like congratulate me and say, wow, what you're doing is awesome. And that's, I've never gotten that, not from anybody, not my parents, nobody. And that I realized that moment was my permission to be a crazy wild entrepreneur. So I'll save everybody out there the 25 grand and say, you have permission from us to be a crazy wild entrepreneur that you are.
Yeah. And one of the things, like, that is so true. So often we are waiting for somebody else to say it's okay to do this. It's okay to be you, right? Like, even though Dana got this multi-million-dollar business that's super successful, he's got pictures of him with his goats and his like tank top in the van with the goat. Like, he's still him 100%, right? Like, if you see it in his videos, you're like, okay, he didn't edit this, right? I'm sorry. Maybe you did, but I think one of the things that I love, though, sorry, Dana's like laughing. But one of the things that I love, though, is that you're not a perfection seeker. It's about, you know what? What's most important is this message gets out to people, and I'm just going to give it in the raw, true, this is the stuff type of a way. And I think that people appreciate that, right? Like, I think that sometimes we get sick of the shiny, perfect, like, I don't know, Barbie doll thing, whatever, right? Like, this fake image that's a facade. It's a, what do they call that in the desert when you can't see?
Mirage.
Mirage, yeah, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like that's what a lot of people are looking for and going after is the mirage. And what really works is when you're just you, like be you. And yes, take, you know, if you want permission from us, we'll say, yes, you have permission. But I want you to like give yourself permission to be like, you know what? I'm going to live unapologetically. This is who I am, right? This is what I have to offer. And you'll connect with more people doing that than any other way possible. And you don't have to worry and second guess and like, oh, you know, did I do this perfect? Did I do that perfect? Like, dude, this is who I am. Like, follow me if you want to follow me. If you don't, I love you. Go do your thing, right? Like, I'll do my thing, you do your thing. We're fine. I think we need more people like that in the world.
I agree completely. That is music to my ears. So I think that I'm gonna make a prediction. I made this prediction, but I think the days of the gurus, like, you know, living this lifestyle, I think those are coming to an end because to be completely honest here, I look at, you know, some of them that are flying in jets and they're wearing, you know, really fancy clothes and they're living that life. And like the masses, we don't have anything in common with them. Like we really don't. And why? So my question would be to people like, why do you follow them? Right? Like I literally have nothing in common with a person that's flying around in a jet and who's driving a Rolls Royce and who's got a butler and who, right? Like I'm a farmer. I have 5 goats right over there. Like literally behind this wall, there's a herd of goats. Right. So, you know, but with that, one of the best, I guess, pieces of advice for this topic or this piece was from a good friend of mine, Steve Shiz, who's in Dream Runner Mastermind. And he basically, as weird as this is, it's really good. He basically he's got a 4-year-old boy, and he looks at him and watches him. And he literally unapologetically does whatever he wants. Like his little boy Zane literally will do whatever, doesn't care what people think. He'll wear outfit that is atrocious and go run around in public, right? Like stuff like that. And he just does not care. And Steve's like, I live like that. Because I always ask Steve, I'm like, Steve, how do you do that? Like what? And he's like, I just live like my boy. I just don't care. So I'm not saying that you have to like go to the extreme with it, but there is a level of you don't care what people think that you need to have in order to get where you want to go. Like even for me, here's a tactical example. When I launch an offer, it may look great from the outside, but when I press go on it, I literally like shut my computer off, run away and hide for a couple hours and don't look at anything because I'm scared. Like it's scary. And I'm scared of what people will say. I'm thinking they're going to say this is terrible. So with that, I give you guys permission again, not only to do whatever you want to do, but also do it unapologetically and don't care what people think, especially people that don't understand.
Yeah, for sure. I love that you actually close your computer and go do something else once you hit launch, because there's nothing worse than like having that anxiety and being there, like watching every single second of something happen, right? Like you're just going to make yourself sick. Like go hang out with your family. This is why you did this. Go hang out with your family. Go do something with your friends. Like it's already done. Let it do its thing. You do your thing. So I asked you a question and then we got sidetracked. So I want to come back to the question. So what was a decision that you made where it shifted from you having one opportunity to then all of a sudden having multiple opportunities or secondary opportunities? And then what was the impact of making that decision?
Man, lots of forks in the road. I'd say one of the biggest ones was growing a team. So for me, obviously, like, yes, I've made a lot of money, but also I've made a lot of mistakes. And I've come to realize that I did have, so I was a solopreneur for like 8 years. and then I had this itch and this idea that I need to build a big team, because in order to, make $100 million, you need a big team, right? So I built a big team in like a week. All of a sudden I looked around, my office had like 8 full-time employees. I'm like, oh my goodness, like what did I just do? And it got to the point where, and by the way, I'm not saying this is not the right thing for some people, but for me it wasn't, because I'm not a good manager of people. And according to someone way smarter than me, it's because I'm not a jerk. The best managers can be jerked, and I just can't, right? Like, I'm the guy hiding in the bathroom when we had to fire someone. Like, I can't, right? So
you got your assistant to go do that.
Exactly. Yeah, they knew if Alex came in and talked to him, it's over with. But anyway, so I had to make a decision, and I did end up, it got to the point where I was working from home. I didn't even want to go to my own office. Like, I hated it so much. I resented it, and it's terrible. They're good people. They just weren't well managed. And I tried to build it way too quick. So like, I had to make a decision to build a great big giant thing, or just keep it small and manageable and just be happy. And I chose that. And I remember, I'll never forget, I asked one of my mentors, Russell Brunson, if you could go back in time and change something about your business, what would you do? And he said, I would have never built it this big with this many people. I would have kept it small. And I was like, oh, frick. It was like that moment when he answered that I was like, oh gosh, I need to do that. So now, like, just getting the Kool-Aid here, like 3 years ago, when I had, 8 full-time employees plus myself, my company did like $800,000 that year, and my take home, which is embarrassing, super embarrassing by the way, was $36,000. And I think about how much work I put in, and I would go pay periods without a check. Like, how do you make $36,000 when the company makes 800? You're not paying yourself, you're paying everybody else, right? Yeah. And then I look at, like, last year we made over $1 million, and there were 2 of us, right? Like 2 full-time people, and my income was a lot more than $36,000. But the point is that for my fork in the road, I made that decision after looking at my failure as a lesson, and I will never look back. And I'm so happy that it happened, because now I will never have that, oh, is the grass greener? Like, my buddy's got like 100 employees. Maybe I should have like 50, right? Never have that, like, what if in the back of my head, because I tried it and it wasn't what I wanted. So with that, that was my, I guess, fork in the road story.
Yeah, no, I love that. So whenever I find that there's a fork in the road, and I love like a few things about that. So one, you hired everybody, and then you had the awareness to go, I hate this, right? Like, this is not for me. Like, I suck in being a manager of people. Like, and I can recognize that, and I can have the humility to say, like, these are good people, but I can't lead them in the way that they need it so that things will go the way it needs to go. So I need to make some changes. And then secondly, like, you went and educated yourself. You went to somebody who had already built on that level, and you were like, okay, what's it like on that side? What's it like having all of these people waiting for you, like, to sign the checks, right? And what's the pressure like, and what's all this stuff like? So you did that, right? And then after that, you put things back in the right order so that you could be like, dude, I love my business again. And I'm handpicking the couple people that I work with so that we have that tight knit community, and we kind of get each other. Like, we know what's what, and we don't have to, I don't know, it's just not so much second guessing, right? Because when you can connect with such a smaller group, you can finish each other's, I was going to say sentences, but if you have kids and you've watched Frozen, you can finish each other's sandwiches. But you know what I mean, right? And I think that's really cool. Now, the thing that really was sticking out to me after that is that whenever we make a shift like that, there's a point where we recognize that it didn't only serve you in your business, but it served the other people around you that work in the office. And then how did that also impact, like, your wife and your daughter? And do you know what I mean? Because anything we do always ripples out. So I'm curious, like, what was the impact? Because if you were at home instead of at work, and, how does that impact things there, because it'll change like stress and relationships and stuff like that. Because I feel like as entrepreneurs, like you said, like some of the non-pretty side of things is stuff that when it comes home, right, and it affects the family and stuff like that. So I'm curious, like, what was the difference for your family when you were in the one space and when you were in the other space?
Oh, I love that question. So I definitely did a good job of hiding it. And I don't even really like intentionally do that. I just am a like optimist, right? So I know that for my family, they weren't getting the full me. I'll just put it that way. So my mind was not where it should have been. So it was like thinking about work, thinking about this, thinking about that. And it wasn't present for them like it is now. And I'll give you a very vivid example. So I'll never forget, and I'm not saying that people shouldn't have employees. Like, I'm saying people that don't do a good job of managing employees should try to manage employees. They should have someone that is good. Do it.
Dana just pointed to himself, you guys.
Yeah.
For those that are seeing the audio or hearing the audio version of this, he's pointing at himself in that.
I know a guy. Anyway, so I mean, this is the classic example. It's like I was traveling for an event that I was speaking at, working my tail off away from my family. Hate traveling, right? Like catching the coronavirus and all this. And I called who was supposed to be my, manager or whomever that was supposed to oversee all the employees at my office. And it was like a Friday at noon or 1 o'clock or something. And I call him and I'm like, hey, what's going on there? And he's like, oh yeah, I just heading home. Like, I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, it's a Friday. Let everyone off at noon. I'm like, what? I'm out here working all weekend away from my family. And you just took the liberty of letting everyone go home at noon because it's a Friday, right? Like, I didn't say that, but it's like, come on. Like, it was that type of stuff that I realized, like, man, I'm working to make you guys a paycheck. This is not fair. So the reality is you have to design your business to take care of you. And then once it does, then you can take care of others. So it's kind of like that analogy of, when geez, God forbid an airplane, right, loses pressure. You put your mask on first before you help others put theirs on. Yeah. That's how you have to look at your business. You have to put your mask on and make it serve you before you can really serve others.
Right. So I love that, because that's a perfect example that in order to correct what was happening at home where you weren't able to be present, and I'm guessing, like, knowing what I know about you, that, I mean, the whole reason you're doing all of this is for them, right? That's the whole purpose anyways, is for them. And so if you can't even be present with them, if you can't even have that connection that you want with them, then what's the point, right? And so I love that, like, and I think too is like you were saying, is that you were really good at hiding it. And that just shows too that it's on a subconscious thing. You were trying to protect them, right? You're trying to keep them safe, protect them. I'm going to be happy, pretend everything's totally fine because I want to protect you guys against what's really happening. But in doing so, it's at a cost. And that is the fact that my mind is completely elsewhere. It's in business. It's at the office. Even though I'm hiding here, it's over there. I'm feeling disjointed. I'm not connecting with you guys. I'm not connecting with my business. I'm feeling like I'm not even connecting. I'm not in integrity with who I am, right? And I feel like that's one of the biggest things that I want to really share inside of Flip the Switch is the talk about, like, a lot of times people say, well, like, how do I build this $1 million business? How do I build, like, and get 100,000 a year? How do I start doing these things? And I'm like, stop thinking about how. Start thinking about who you are when you're doing it, right? Like, who you are, right? And it starts with two. I mean, you look at people that have experiences where they grow up and everyone's like, oh, who are you going to be when you grow up? Well, I'm going to be me, but what I'm going to do is this job, right? And changing that mindset so that people start to recognize that it's about who they are and how they show up in their business that makes the difference, right? And so you realigned that in that example, and you got your life back, you got your connection back at business, at home, and you brought yourself to integrity with yourself, with your who you are as Dana, and who you are in that level of in alignment with what success and what that really means for you, right?
Absolutely. And that is very underrated, by the way. So well said. Love that.
Awesome. Well, I don't want to keep you forever, so we should probably finish up a few things here. Let me just see if there was any last questions that I had. Let me see, I had a couple here. Oh, okay. So 2 more things. What's next for you? Okay. So what are you kind of working on? What are you boiling? And then also, I just want to let people know as well that I will add a link to this for you guys to connect so you guys can get access to the Dream 100 book. It is not a book you want to miss out on. It is literally, it's a flip the switcher. Okay. And you've got to read it. And it's not even hard to read. Like he puts like, I don't know, 100 words, not even on each page. Like he spaces it out. It's not full of crap and fluff. Like he's just like, you know what, take it as it is. This is who I am. And I'm not gonna add all the fluff. Like I don't need to make a huger book to make me look better and to up my status. Okay. It's about like, okay, what's the raw stuff? What's going to make the difference that people need to know in order to take this new way of entrepreneurship and be able to leverage their time, right? And themselves in it. So I love it. So I will definitely put a link in the show notes for that. But what are you working on right now, Dana? And inside of what you're working on right now, is there anything where inside of that where you're like, you know what, there's still things I'm learning inside of this, like, because that'd be kind of neat to know. Because I think it's cool you mentioned too, is like at each level, we always think, oh, it'll be great when I get to this stage. It'll be great when I get to that stage. Stop waiting to celebrate and start freaking celebrating along the way, you guys, right? Like start saying, hey, look at where I came today from yesterday. Look at where I was a year ago. Look at where I was a week ago. And celebrate those things, because so often I see this so much in my coaching clients is they're all waiting to celebrate later. And they are living a nightmare trying to create the dream. Okay. So let's wake up and have some joy in the journey. So tell me a little bit about that, Dana.
Dang, that was a mic drop right there. Living the nightmare to try and create the dream. That is amazing. Holy crap. Okay. So the next thing we're doing, I'll try and give you the really quick version. So I, drinking the Kool-Aid here, made a decision when 2020 hit, this new year. I was like, I'm going to not wait to do stuff. Like, you always wait for like, oh, if I just get over this, like if we just, this project pass or this event go, like after that, I'll be able to do blah, blah, blah. I'm like, nope, I'm just going to force this in. And the new thing is we are launching a virtual therapy farm. So essentially, I think everyone knows about animal assisted therapy and how awesome it is for kids and adults and whomever that have whatever issues and all that. Now there's a segment though of the population that is underserved or not served because specifically for us kids that are too sick to be around an animal, or they can't emotionally be around an animal, or they just have no means can't afford it, can't access animals. So we are bringing the next best thing, and we're creating a virtual therapy farm where kiddos can, from their hospital bed or wherever they're home, live video with an animal, and farmers can essentially donate a relationship with their animal to the kid. And we've got a couple of kids that we've piloted this with, which has been amazing. And yeah, so this is our passion side project, virtual therapy farm.
I love it. I love it for so many reasons. I love it because you're giving back. I love it because this is part of success for you. This is your success journey. This is your success story, that you can take your influence where you are right now and you can create something new with it, and you can partner with people to make something happen that is going to create impact in the world, in the lives of these little ones, right? And you know, you change the life of one soul and you change generations sometimes, right? Like I really feel like, you know, a lot of times we get caught up and we get blinded by like, you know, having to reach the masses. And instead of reach out for the one, you reach out for the one, you meet them where they are, you lift them up, and it ripples out. And you just do that over and over again and it ripples out, right? And I feel like that's something that you guys are doing with this, with the animals, and it's bringing joy to them. And I mean, we know that when we serve other people, it ends up giving us the endorphin dumps as well, right? Of that good feeling. And so and then anyone witnessing it gets the endorphin dumps, like it goes on and on and on. So there's so much joy in this. I love it.
Awesome. Yeah, you nailed it. So thank you for the support. And if you guys noticed there, that felt like permission. So even when you get to this stage, permission is always awesome, and feedback and support is always welcomed and amazing. So thank you for that. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Absolutely. So I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really, really appreciate the time that you have given, the little nuggets that you've left for us, and not only the little nuggets, but just some of those things that like people will take from this, and they will listen to it, I think, more than once, and they'll say, oh, when he said this, or when he said that, or you know, you can go deeper with these things and with these stories, and then they can apply it to themselves as well. And I think that's one of the things that we do when we're learning, right? But I want to thank you for your time, for being here, and I really appreciate that. And I just wanted to encourage all of you guys to go ahead and check out what Dana's doing. Show your support in whatever way you can. If you know somebody that can help with this new project that he's working on with the goats, or not even just the goats, but with animals in general for the therapy farm. Dana, do you have like a website or something started on where people can connect on that project specifically?
Yeah, so it's being built right now, but maybe by the time you guys listen or hear this, therapyfarm.com will be where it is. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, therapyfarm.com, and then I'll also drop in the show notes for the Dream 100 book. And that's it for today, for having Dana on our show. And we just thank you so much for being here. So thanks.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness, you guys, that was so much fun. What a great interview. What you need to know next is I will be adding the link to the Dream 100 book in either the comment section if you're on social media, or in the show description on YouTube, or in the show description as well on the podcast, wherever you are listening. So you can find that there. You'll definitely want to pick that one up. It's a total gem. Thank you so much for joining me in this juicy conversation today with Dana Derricks, being able to go behind the scenes and pick out a bazillion little gold nuggets. This is definitely one you will want to re-listen to over and over. Thanks so much, guys. I am just loving having so much fun with you guys and learning so much along the way. Have a great one. I want to sincerely thank you and appreciate you today for showing up here on Flip the Switch. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a training session in your mindset mastery, leveling up your business success. And be a good friend. Share this episode with a fellow business builder. I'll see you next week, same time, same place.